Good afternoon, everybody. How are you? I know one or two families were due to go to Lanzarote this week, and the government and the Spanish people have now cancelled their holidays or made it impossible for them to go and come back. So I feel very sorry for you, and I hope you can find something to cheer you up in the next few weeks. It's very hard, isn't it? But when you've looked forward to something so much, I should be in Lourdes myself this week, which I really look forward to. And it's hard. It is a hard thing. So anyway, I hope you find something to cheer you up. I know last week some of you were saying you were a bit sad when you heard what I had to say to you, but I'm only telling you the truth. And that is how it is. And there's no point in hiding from that. I don't need counselling or something like that, because the counselling I need I receive from being with you. So I'm not depressed or anything, but sometimes you get sad, and sometimes you can be very happy and contented. But there are lots of things to make us sad at the moment. To the point, 6 people have died in the last week. Now, none of that is from COVID-19, it's just through illness, and in one case, a huge tragedy in Spain. But you can't but be sad. And if you're not sad about it, then you're not a very good priest at all, because you don't care. So please say a prayer today, if you will, for Monica, James, Nick, Tony, Eileen and Joan. 4 of the funerals will be next week. And they're not just funerals, they're people. People with a story. People like Eileen, for example, who was a member of our Sunshine Club, and a quiet, timid lady who came to life when she sang. And she sang beautifully. She used to sing The White Cliffs of Dover and Somewhere Over the Rainbow perfectly, in perfect pitch. And when she was in the best of form, her pièce de résistance was Hey Big Spender, and she did all the actions as well. It was truly wonderful to see her party piece. And she spent the last 3 years of her life in a home in Sapkot, hardly able to speak through dementia and various other difficulties. And now she's gone to the Lord, and we'll miss her, especially her devoted friend John. So they're people. And I just want to speak a bit more at length about one of those people, Mrs. Joan Hodgson. She was a remarkable lady who lived in Old Shulton, a quiet, very, very devout person who loved to receive our Lord twice, 2 or 3 times a week. More if possible. She was a daily mass goer in her time, and brought up 9 children, one of whom died quite sadly some years ago. She lived a very ordinary life, but it wasn't actually that ordinary at all. She was a woman who had great principle, and one of her principles concerned children who were not allowed to be born. And so even in her 80s, when she was getting frail, she would go and sit or kneel outside an abortion clinic and pray. Just sit there and pray that God would change the minds of some of those people coming in there, as indeed happened from time to time. She had an acute sense of social justice, of what was right and what wasn't right, and what we should be doing about it. These days, when there is a social injustice, people tend to demonstrate, and sometimes those demonstrations get out of hand and therefore lose their value. But social justice is an essential part of the Catholic and the Christian life, both in word and in deed. Over the years, there have been some great examples of teaching from the popes on social justice. Pope Leo XIII issued a document called Rerum Novarum of New Things, which was the foundation for the trade union movement and fair conditions at work. Pope John XXIII issued a document, Pacem in Terris, Peace on Earth, about finding the ways to peace as God and Jesus intended us to. Sometime after, his successor, Paul VI, issued a document called Popularium Progressio, the development of peoples, which was all about third world development and the attitude of the first and second world to it. Again, a pivotal document. And latterly, of course, Pope Francis has issued his document on the climate, Laudato Si, Yes, be praised, the prayer of St. Francis. So there has been much teaching from the popes and also from our bishops. Some years ago they issued a very pertinent document called The Common Good before one of the elections. I think it was the election of 2005, if I'm not mistaken. And it was a remarkable piece of work. Sometimes one has to say that the Catholic Church is a little lacking when it comes to the practice of social justice. Yes, we have CAFOD and we have various other things, and many facilities for homeless people were actually established by the Catholic Church. The Padley Centre in Derby, St Wilfrid's in Sheffield, Emmanuel House in Nottingham, to name just three. But it's often the other Christian churches, like the Methodist Church and the Church of England, that get more actively involved in trying to bring about social justice, especially in regard to people who are refugees. So there's a complement there in the Christian church between the clear teaching and the practice. And we hope that both of us would come together, because this is an essential part of our discipleship of our Lord. But most of us don't think about it, really, unless it impinges directly upon us. And so lately we have been encouraged to think about racial prejudice and the movement Black Lives Matter. There have been demonstrations, footballers taking the knee, all sorts of things. The problem with racism has gone on for years, of course, but it's now been highlighted. And there is an awful lot of feeling that much of this inherent and even institutional racism needs to be rooted out. We also believe in free speech here, so we allow people with opposing views to demonstrate, like the English Defence League, who I have to say I am not one bit enamoured of at all. And there are other people who demonstrate for matters relating to what's called LGBT, homosexuality, transgender, and so on. And all of this is part of our lives now. But it isn't, because the buzzword in all of this is equality. And it's all very well talking that all Black Lives Matter, which is absolutely true, unless, of course, you're a refugee who is black, then it doesn't. We've created a hostile environment to keep you out. We don't want you here, taking our jobs, taking our benefits. We don't care whether you've fled for your life from murder and violence and torture and rape and abuse. So your life doesn't matter. And in the equality, the unborn don't matter either. They have no rights. There is a movement now in Parliament trying to put a bill through Parliament to prevent people from demonstrating outside abortion clinics, like Joan, who are doing nothing more than sitting there quietly and saying their prayers. So where is the equality there? Well, as George Orwell said, all men are created equal, but some are more equal than others. And being a Christian, seeking social justice, we need to point out these inconsistencies, even hypocrisies about our modern society. We get very worked up about some things, but not about others. And often that anger or outrage, as it's sometimes called, passes on to something else. People are outraged about the coronavirus. It shouldn't be happening. It should have gone by now. But we are not in control of it. And we're trying our best to learn to live with it in the hope that one day it will work its way out of our country and our systems. But no point in demonstrating about that. There's no point in going on about it. What we need to do is to follow the proper guidelines in order to make sure that it doesn't spread any further. And we've seen in the last week that some people have not done this, and now we discover that it is spreading further. Hinckley is still one of the difficult areas, as I read in the paper this morning. So, to promote social justice means that you pray, of course, first of all, that you do take action when necessary, and that you point out the inconsistencies and hypocrisies of modern life. There are huge inconsistencies where refugees are concerned, and in particular where the unborn are concerned. And unless those inconsistencies are addressed, to me, it means that those demonstrations and all of that comes over as very hollow and sort of selected. It's a kind of selected outrage, isn't it? So I think that, yes, we do have freedom of speech, but everybody should be allowed to speak. Yes, we are allowed to demonstrate, but everybody should be allowed to demonstrate. Yes, we claim to have equality, but in fact, it's only for some people. This is part of living the gospel. And there are things that we don't like to be reminded of. We read in the scriptures, it was to shame the wise that God chose what is foolish by human reckoning. And so he's put his hand on a young woman, Greta Thunberg, to point out to us the hypocrisy and inconsistency of our modern life in regard to the climate. And he put his hand on an old woman, Joan Hodgson, to point out the hypocrisy and inconsistency in regard to human beings who are yet to be born. Pope Francis said this week, what we need to show is in our lives, not in our speech, in our prayer, not in our palaver. We're very glad that there are people among us who feel so strongly about things that they quietly and prayerfully demonstrate, and who can, in a courteous and considered manner, point out these inconsistencies and hypocrisies of our generation. Thank you very much, Joan Hodgson, and all the others like you, and rest in peace.